Hello. Made it back to San Francisco. In time for late night Lombardi. What is it? 11:34 p.m. Pacific time. Should be enough to get quite a few of you on here. I know it's bedtime past for people on the East Coast, but I think West Coasters, we could push this up to several hundred people as we talk about the 49ers and the fact that their stock has never been higher. When you look at the 49ers and you say, okay, can this team go and win the Super Bowl? Or can this team go and win the NFC and make it to the Super Bowl? And you, week by week, you take inventory of their chances. Their chances and their stock has never been higher than right now, fresh after a commanding 41-23 win over the Seattle Seahawks in the wild card round of the playoffs. That's the big picture takeaway. The 49ers looked so good today as they pulled away from the Seahawks in that second half. And of course, they were behind at halftime, but these games are 60 minutes long. These games aren't 30 minutes long. And there are a lot of people, I don't want to say dancing on the 49ers grave, but people just like to be so reactionary early in these games. At halftime, they're freaking out because they're down 16-14. And it's like, wait, hold on, pump the brakes. Look at the body of work from the first half. And it was 17-16, right? In the first half. The body of work in the first half, the 49ers defense struggled. That's for sure. But the offense, despite the fact that it had its inefficiencies, right? That Brock Purdy had his misfires and Brock Purdy was a little bit off schedule with some of his stuff. Despite that, they put up 16 points in the first half. That's a pace of 32 for the game. So if even a bad 49ers half these days puts them on pace to score 32 points, that they're living right. They're really living right. And then the thing is, in the second half, they fixed those inefficiencies and they just exploded. And they went up from the 16 points they scored over the first 30 minutes to surpassing 41-23 over the Seahawks 43. Gosh, I don't even know. It was a blowout. Let me look. 41-23. 41-23 in Seattle. Okay, Seattle scored 6 points without the 2-point conversion. The last touchdown had 17. That's right. So 41-23 over the Seahawks. It was a blowout. The 49ers did to Seattle what we thought they were going to do. That's cover the spread. I said, 27-10 was my prediction. I thought the rain would slow this game down a little bit more, but the rain didn't end up showing up in the second half. So I had a 17-point spread in my prediction, and based on my math, 41-23 is an 18-point game. So the 49ers are good 17 or 18 points better than Seattle. Back in week 2, they were a good 20 points better, right? And in week 15, they won by 8, but remember that the 49ers also took a knee at the 2. So that means they're 15 points better. So we've seen the 49ers be 20 points better at home in week 2, 15 points better on the road in week 15 with an injured quarterback, mind you. Probably cost them a few points there. And then today's game, 18 points better at home with a healed quarterback. It's consistent across the board, right? Especially if you look at a couple of the mitigating factors, the 49ers were clearly better than the Seahawks this year. But anyway, when you win a game in this kind of fashion in the postseason, and I'm going to go through the positions here and talk about some of the areas where the 49ers were especially impressive. But when this kind of stuff happens and you stack it onto the fact that the 49ers won 10 straight games to close the regular season, they have to be considered a Super Bowl favorite at this point. Now, whether or not they're the Super Bowl favorite to win it all, I don't know. But in my book, the 49ers are the favorite from the NFC. The Eagles don't have the same resume as the 49ers. Not down the stretch. Not number 1 offense, number 1 defense, number 7 special teams, whatever it was, DVOA for the last 10 games. The Eagles don't have that. They don't have the 10-game winning streak entering the playoffs. It's up to 11 for the 49ers now. And hell, I mean, the Eagles don't play this weekend, but there's a non-zero chance that they lose before this gets to the NFC Championship game. I think it's a wide open field. I think it's the 49ers and everybody else, to be honest, right now in the NFC. And then obviously the AFC, I think, has the real threats. Right, you got the Bills, you have the Chiefs, you have the Bengals. The Eagles are a threat too. I'm just saying that they were leaking a little bit of oil to close the regular season in a way that their counterparts at the top of the NFC, the 49ers, definitely were not leaking oil. So let's go through position by position. I have the game book here. I have my water here as well in the jar that you all love. And let's talk about what just happened on this field at Levi Stadium today. It was rainy at the start, dried up. We saw some sunshine down the stretch of the football game. I met a lot of people today. It was cool walking around the field. A lot of people said hello. Good, energetic vibes at Levi's. If you check out some of my other videos, I got the tunnel walk for the 49ers, the one where they walk through the club level. So I guess the club walk. And I spliced together the skill position guys. Purdy led them out with the linemen coming out after them. And it was just electric in that building. Some people were saying that they felt that it was a little bit like a candlestick vibe. Oh boy. I have it on my phone. I'll probably play it in Lombardi's Look Back tomorrow because I can't get it off my phone. My phone's the camera right now. A cool video of the crowd roaring on Deebo Samuel's 74-yard touchdown. It was ear-splitting noise at Levi's. It's the loudest I had heard Levi's. And unfortunately, I don't have the video available to put up right now. I'd have to grab my phone. I'm not going to do that. So be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You know that tomorrow, which is Sunday, we'll squeeze in a Lombardi's Look Back video. We'll talk about the other football games tomorrow. First, it's Bills-Dolphins at 10 o'clock. Then it's the game that the 49ers are going to be paying attention to, and that's Minnesota-New York Giants. I think that the 49ers should be rooting for Minnesota tomorrow because that does two things. If Minnesota wins, the 49ers play the Vikings next week, and the Vikings are the worst of the three possible opponents for the 49ers in the next round. It's either the Vikings, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or the Dallas Cowboys. Minnesota is the worst of those three teams. But B, this is also the clearest path toward home field advantage in the NFC Championship game for the 49ers. Because if the New York Giants win, they will play Philadelphia in the next round. But if the Minnesota Vikings win, they're going to come to San Francisco, and that means that the Philadelphia Eagles will host the winner of Tampa Bay Dallas. So if you're the 49ers, you'd rather take the weaker team yourself and then send one of the two stronger teams, Tampa Bay or Dallas, to go try to beat up Philadelphia. And if one of those two teams beats up Philadelphia and wins that game in Philly, divisional round, all the 49ers have to do for home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs is beat Minnesota at home. So that's quite a tantalizing proposition. That's at 1:30 tomorrow, Minnesota, New York Giants. Then you have Bengals, Ravens. That's a nightcap, I believe, at 5:30. I think that's the NBC game. But anyway, let's get back to this one. 49ers, their stock has never been higher. Their Super Bowl stock has never been higher after dismantling the Seahawks over the second half of this game. At quarterback, Brock Purdy. The overall stats, I'll read them to you right here. You can see the second half stats on the screen right now. Overall stats for Brock Purdy were 18 of 30, 332 yards, and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And I want to put up efficiency numbers. This was such an exceptional second half from the 49ers that it just blew the efficiency charts out of the water. So we're going to go game box scores here. And we're going to go... What are we at? We are in the wild card round, so I got to scroll all the way to the playoffs. Seattle, San Francisco update. Then I'm going to pop this sucker open on the screen. Those of you who like this EPA stuff and some of the efficiency numbers are going to be big fans of this. All right, look at this. So this is based on a percentile chart, right? So the further the bar goes, the darker the green gets. And if you take the whole thing, your 100th percentile means that you're better than any other performance ever logged. Brock Purdy and the 49ers offense, they both get credit here. So does Shanahan. EPA per dropback, he had 35 dropbacks, 0.72. That is 98th percentile of any quarterback performance of all time. This was a top 2% efficiency kind of game. Purdy's dropbacks added over 25 expected points. That is just absurdly mind-blowing. His average depth of target was 92nd percentile. He was airing it out today, 11.7. And his completion percentage over expectation +5, also good. QBR 92.2. Given the fact that Purdy started a little bit shaky, the fact that he finished with this kind of efficiency, staggering stuff. And Geno Smith didn't have a terrible game, but Geno Smith's game was not nearly as efficient as Brock Purdy's. And, the stat right underneath me right there, 16.8 yards per attempt in the second half. That is absurd. 16.8. Every time he attempted a pass, they averaged a gain of nearly 17 yards. And that's why I was like never doom and gloom about the 49ers in the first half. Even in the first half, they scored 16 points. There was 3 field goals. They were settling for those field goals for 3 points, right? But the chunk plays were there throughout this whole game. They completely exposed Seattle's defense. Listen to this. Receiving average, so average per completion. Deebo Samuel, 22.2. Brandon Ayuk, 24.3. Juwan Jennings, 20.5. George Kittle, 18.5. Elijah Mitchell, 12.5. Oh, that pales in comparison to everybody else, 12.5. Your top 4 receivers are close to 20 yards or more than 20 yards per catch. Just sensational. I mean, there was wide open spaces that the 49ers were running through in this football game. So that's just the perspective that I think that we need for Brock Purdy's performance. Now, I will say we've learned that part of the way to, maybe upset Brock Purdy's rhythm, timing, whatever, a little bit, is to force him out to roll out to the left, flush out the pocket quickly, take away a primary read over the middle of the field, flush him left. That's where Seattle made some of its hay today. You saw a Bruce Irvin sack. You saw some pressures that turned into throwaways. But the thing is, the 49ers have so many quality eligible receivers that if Purdy can stay in structure behind a good offensive line, this offensive line, you can't say enough about them, how well they've performed this year. Only 1 sack for Seattle today. But given decent protection, Brock Purdy is going to have receivers open like today. They're going to be roaming wide open down the field. He just has to be able to play within the structure of the offense. And today, early on, Seattle was able to knock him out of that structure by cutting off some of his usual routes in the first half, and obviously by rushing with the correct angles. But boy, did the 49ers fix it. When they cut off the short routes and, over the middle of the field, I want to say mid to intermediate routes of the middle of the field. So short to intermediate routes of the middle of the field. So I don't want to say that it's limited to one distance, but the inside linebackers did a good job early on for Seattle. After they cut that off, the 49ers started going perimeter. And when they started going perimeter, Purdy started feeling his rhythm, right? And with his rhythm, he was able to operate in schedule. And then the off-schedule plays became fewer and farther between. They became more special when they happened, and he delivered on those too. You just can't base your life on off-schedule if you're Brock Purdy. You're good at it. You got some quickness, but your offense is too good to be running off-schedule all the time. And they figured that out in the second half. So the supporting cast here was absolutely sensational. You have McCaffrey leading the way on the ground at 7.9 per carry, 119 yards, and Deebo Samuel leading the way at receiver with 133 yards receiving. But here's the catch-22. Maybe the catch-23 if we're going to go with Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey might have led in rushing yardage, and Deebo Samuel might have led in receiving yardage, but it was Deebo Samuel who took the first carry of the game, who got the first handoff of the game, and it was Christian McCaffrey who was the biggest decoy, the biggest drawer of defensive attention on the pass game end. So basically what you have here is Christian McCaffrey, a running back who could deliver at receiver, and Deebo Samuel, a receiver who can deliver at running back. And one big headache for opposing defenses today, it was the Seattle Seahawks. You don't know where each guy's going to line up and what he's going to do. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. You also have George Kittle. You also have Kyle Juszczyk. Brandon Ayuk, he takes some handoffs of, we see some reverses from him every once in a while. He might not fall into that same positionless skill position category. He's an X wide receiver. He's there to beat man coverage. But even Brandon Ayuk is a complete stud. So this offense just overflowing with talent, and you could see the efficiency. I mean, 7.9 yards per carry in the NFL is disgusting. That's obscene. And Deebo Samuel, 22.4 per catch. That's gross. Disgusting and gross. I mean, these are insanely gaudy averages that the 49ers just made look easy today. Made it look like a low-level college game against that Seattle defense. And then it's all kind of underlined by the offensive line. Only 1 sack allowed by the 49ers offensive line. That was the one to Bruce Irvin. So Purdy is also in charge of not getting sacked. It's him in the line. But I mentioned it leading up into this game that the 49ers had the number 5 pass blocking efficiency in all football. It's the best offensive line that Kyle Shanahan has ever fielded. It's the best set of weapons that Kyle Shanahan has ever fielded. So it's all set up to be explosive. And Brock Purdy harnessed that today. And explosiveness, 16.8 yards per attempt in the second half. I mean, just an awesome, awesome performance. All right, flipping it over to the defensive side of the ball. Let's start with the D-line. Charles Omenihu, the 49ers need, and they've been straining for this ever since Dee Ford's injuries prevented him from playing. They've been looking for a complement to Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa's awesome. He's going to be the defensive player of the year. It's going to be a landslide. There's very little question about that. But for a defensive line to consistently deliver truly overpowering moments, it's got to have a secondary guy coming off the other edge. Or if they're in the NASCAR package, the Niners call it the lightning package, he could be coming off of the interior working against guards. But you have to have a second guy. And it may not, you don't have a Dee Ford in his prime anymore. You don't have a DeForest Buckner in his prime anymore. It might be a different second guy each time, because we know, like Eric Armstead, he's great against the run. He's a good pass rusher too, but Eric Armstead's generally the guy that commands the double team, so he's the one freeing everybody else up. So it's not always going to be Eric Armstead gobbling up that production to augment Bosa, right? That shows up on the stat sheet. Not always him. And if it's not always him, you got to find somebody else that's going to contribute. And that's where Sansom Ebukam comes in. Or that's where Charles Omenihu comes in. And Charles Omenihu today was a complete monster. Look at this. This is Charles Omenihu's spider chart. Those of you familiar with spider charts, they're also based on percentiles. So you look at the different measurements versus other defensive linemen: height, weight, wingspan, arm length, vertical jump, broad jump, 20-yard shuttle. You see what the percentile is versus other players at his position. Charles Omenihu's wingspan, making my wingspan right here, is 85.5 inches. His arm length, which is obviously very correlated with the wingspan, is 36 inches. You see that those two are 97th and 98th percentile, respectively. And then he's got a vertical jump and a broad jump and good height too at 6'5". So, I mean, these are the things that matter as an edge rusher, right? More than the 40. The vertical and the broad jump, that's explosiveness right off the ball. And then the wingspan and arm length, well, that can add to the explosiveness because you could reach the quarterback. Or he could reach a running back that's trying to get after the football, but that's trying to get after the run game. But you look at the turning point in this game, and it's Seattle driving. They're down 23-17. So they're down only 6. 49ers defense not quite looking dominant at this point in the game. They need another splash play, the kind of splash play they got all the time in 2019 from Bosa, Buckner, Ford, whoever was out there. Ronald Blair delivered some splash plays that year too. DJ Jones. They need a splash play. They're struggling to get it. It's not that hard to just focus on Bosa and kind of cut him out of the game if the other guys up front aren't picking up some of that slack. And Charles Omenihu was a few plays removed from a missed sack. He let Geno Smith slip out of his grasp. So here the 49ers are. It's the 12th play of this drive. Seattle is threatening to at least kick a field goal. It's 3rd and 14 because the 49ers finally slowed down the run game. We'll talk about that in a bit. And because of 3rd and 14, the 49ers bring in the lightning package, the NASCAR package, right? They bring in all the horses and their defensive ends, and Charles Omenihu lines up a tackle. He gets a defensive tackle. He gets to work against Gabe Jackson, the right guard, veteran right guard for the Seahawks. And Omenihu just blows by him. It's what Arden Key was doing for the 49ers last year, right? You have a slimmer edge rusher, and they've cut the weight from Omenihu from 280 to 265. He's not as light as Key, but I mean, you saw the broad jump and the athleticism and the other stuff here that really helps make him into the rusher that he is. He just blows by Gabe Jackson. And then the wingspan and the arm length come in because he's flying by Geno Smith. So Smith is to his right, and he's got to reach as he's hurtling in full speed, grabs a hold of the football, squeezes it, and yanks it out. Fumble. Nick Bosa falls on it. That was one of Charles Omenahu's 2 sacks in this football game. He's only had one other multi-sack game in his career, and that was last playoffs wild card round against the Dallas Cowboys. And that was against Tyron Smith, and he was running power moves on Tyron Smith, which was super impressive. So anyway, the big-time players come through in big-time moments. There have been 2 wild card playoff games now that Charles Omenihu has played for the 49ers, and both of them he's had multiple sacks. And today he turned the game around with that wingspan, just that awesome display against Gabe Jackson to go and strip Geno Smith. So maybe the 49ers have a legitimate compliment to Nick Bosa. Another stat for you about Charles Omenihu, he had 4.5 sacks, which is a career high this season, which is a respectable number. It's not gaudy, but he 54 pressures on the season. He ranked number 20 of all edge rushers in pressures. And we know that pressures are much more predictive of future sacks than sacks themselves. So Omenihu's a top 20 sacks guy, potentially. If he's that high in the pressure department, you just got to finish those opportunities. Didn't finish his first one, but he finished his second 2 today, and that was tremendous news for the 49ers. At linebacker, Dre Greenlaw had 11 tackles, and he also explained to me that the Seattle Seahawks were inverting a lot of their running plays, and it actually threw the 49ers off a little bit. Nick Bosa, speaking of him a little bit earlier, he shared that the Seahawks run game was a little bit more patient, especially with K9 Kenneth Walker, than it had been in the past. So he's hitting some cutbacks. You know, they hit the edge against Dre Greenlaw when they ran an inverted play, flip side. But Bosa said that the 49ers just had to get more physical. That's why Seattle was able to run in the first half, because the 49ers were not physical enough and the cutback lanes were there. So they had to just go for broke, aggressively blow up the offensive line, move downfield to eliminate the cutback line. Sometimes when you do that, you could get burnt by a screen pass, but the Seahawks weren't really running screens today. They couldn't, they were running to their wideouts. They wanted to get to Metcalf and to Tyler Lockett. And oftentimes they did get it successfully to them, but not enough to win this football game. So the 49ers might have been caught off guard by some of what Seattle did in the first half, but they quickly fixed that when they got really physical against the run, and Dre Greenlaw will help mask anything with how he flies around the football field with 11 tackles. All right, moving on to the secondary. This might have been the most impressive portion of the 49ers performance. And no, not because DK Metcalf had 10 for 136. He obviously made Charvarius Ward look a whole lot worse than week 15 when Ward dominated Metcalf. It was revenge in that way for Metcalf, but because of Deommodore Lenoir. I mean, Lenoir, that interception against Tyler Lockett was awesome. They're running a timing out route to the sideline. Lenoir all over it. You could tell all over his film. And then obviously the quickness is on full display for Deommodore Lenoir. So all these people talking smack about Deommodore Lenoir, he makes the best secondary play of the game. But the larger picture is, if the 49ers have a pronounced weakness on the back end, people have been saying that it's Deommodore Lenoir, but he turns around and plays his best game of the year in the playoffs against a stiff competition, right? There were a couple of plays where he had to be on Metcalf. It's kind of a mismatch because Metcalf is so much bigger. Most of the time, Charvarius Ward was on Metcalf. You saw him get roasted, but I don't worry about Charvarius Ward. He's a good corner. He's proven to be a good corner. DK Metcalf is paid too. So sometimes the guy that's also paid is going to win. Sometimes it's going to go back and forth. It's Lenoir who you worry about entering the stretch run of this playoffs, or you worried about. But the game that he put on today, I thought really said, oh, the 49ers have something going. Now, back to Ward. The Ward squared is important. Both of those guys have to deliver, and Jimmy Ward can't be taking any more of those personal foul penalties. Special teams, just fine for the 49ers in this game. Oren Burks, nice tackle on special teams. The squib kick wasn't good at the end of the first half, but Robbie Gould hit 4 field goals. They only punt it once, so it's hard to judge. It's a good thing, though, for the 49ers. George Odom obviously led the league in special teams tackles. He's still out there. He's still dominating. I like Samuel Womack on special teams. One reason why I think that the 49ers stock has never been higher in terms of potentially winning a Super Bowl is that obviously the offense and the defense are both juggernauts, right? They have talent on both sides. They're playing top level on both sides. But when you get to the playoffs, and especially when you get to the Super Bowl and it's either Kansas City, Buffalo, or Cincinnati waiting for you, those are all great two-way teams as well. They have got awesome quarterbacks and they're playing good defense. Even Kansas City's playing above average defense since week 8, since the 49ers saw the Christian McCaffrey introduction into their lineup. So when you have a bunch of two-way teams and you're going to have to beat one of these guys, one of these teams for the world championship, sometimes it helps to make yourself a three-way team. And that's where the 49ers special teams unit comes into play. Special teams is playing well. Ray McLeod is effective returning kicks. Hasn't busted one free yet, but maybe that's coming. But it's Oren Burks. It's Tarvarius Moore. It's George Odom. Demetrius Flanagan-Foles. There are a lot of players on this 49ers special teams unit who are quality players. And keep in mind that Seattle came into this game ranked number 4 on special teams. They had beaten the 49ers twice last year by exposing them on special teams. Well, former Seattle special teams coordinator Brian Schneider is with the 49ers now, and he has turned around the 49ers special teams unit to the point where they held serve just fine with a good Seattle special teams unit today. And you talk about Super Bowl contention, the fact the 49ers have the offense, the defense, and the special teams to not screw the other two up, that puts them into favorite status for me, at least in the NFC. This was a complete 49ers performance. That second half, they rip-roared through that second half. It was really impressive. Now, talking about the 49ers defensive struggles, I mentioned the cornerback spot. I mentioned the DK Metcalf is paid too, and you can't really blame Charvarius Ward for having trouble guarding one of the true just elite bodies in this game, right? DK Metcalf is special. Ward shut him down in week 15, not this time. The pass rush can probably do a little bit more for the 49ers corners. That's why the emergence of Charles Omenihu is so big. But then, the biggest issue was the run game. They gave up a little too much to Seattle on the ground. And when I look at the run game and I hear what Bosa said about the cutback lanes and the patience of Kenneth Walker, and I hear what Greenlaw said, right? I listened to him too, and I hear about the inverted runs for the Seattle Seahawks. I think that every team that the 49ers face is going to throw the kitchen sink at them. They're going to throw unexpected tendencies, whatever they need to, because they know the 49ers are number 1 right now. So the halftime adjustments need to be saluted in this game. D'Amico Ryans made sure that the 49ers were ready for inverted runs in the second half. Chris Kacerek, who's D'Amico Ryans' D-line coach, made sure that the 49ers were firing off the football physically, knocking Seattle into the backfield in the second half to close down those cutback lanes. As long as you adjust, the 49ers have margin for error. They don't have to be perfect for 60 minutes to win these playoff games. They're that much better than these teams, and you saw a good example of it on the field today. And then, the Purdy on schedule challenge, I talked about it a little bit before, but Brock Purdy, the more they could keep him on schedule within the structure of the offense, the better the 49ers will be. That's, to me, mandatory. Keep Brock Purdy on schedule, in structure of the offense, and then he could do his improvisational stuff off of that. But boy, what an impressive performance for him, 16.8 per attempt. And what an impressive win for the 49ers. Their stock has never been higher. That second half run, the deluge, the flood, it was really, really, really overpowering. All right, I'll answer a few questions, and I'm tired. Got to get some sleep, more football to watch tomorrow. Yeah, if Ayuk doesn't drop the beautiful pass Purdy threw to him, that's going to play on highlight reels for a really long time. It's a good day for the 49ers when the squib kick is their fans' only complaint. Yeah, but there was the Jimmy Ward late hit. I don't think that was good in this game. No injuries that I heard of. I need to check Kyle's presser one more time. I was in the locker room at the time, so I'll follow up with you on that one. I didn't notice that because I wasn't watching on TV. I guess Pete Carroll stopped chewing gum in the second half. They had a good game plan. You got to give Seattle credit. They wanted to take the air out of the game. They ran differently than they had run on tape, and then they ran a lot of play action off of that. But like we predicted, the 49ers simply had too much for the Seattle Seahawks. If Ayuk would have caught that, would have been known as, there already is a catch 3. Would have been a catch 4 if we're going by that. Catch 3 happened in January 2013, 2012 season, Vernon Davis. But it was too much of a blowout at that point. I don't think it would have been that catch. People complaining about this. Yeah, so Jonathan Abram, who is a former Raiders safety, is now with the Seahawks, started yanking at Debo's ankle after a play early in the second half, and that pissed the 49ers off. And they're like, okay, now you're going to die, Seattle. Now, okay, you've done it now. We're behind in this game, but we're going to score within the next couple plays, and then we're going to essentially shut you out in the second half because, I mean, the 49ers, they puffed their chests out at Seattle. They thought it was a dirty play from Jonathan Abram, and it certainly seemed to wake up the 49ers. Bosa said that it woke up the beast inside of the 49ers. Ebukam ankle and Juwan Jennings ankle. All right. I wasn't in on Shanahan's presser, so I'm going to catch it. I'm going to catch up on that. Typically, they don't really know all that much after these games unless it was a more serious injury, and it's not going to be until tomorrow or Monday. I think whenever Shanahan has his conference call, not sure how it works with other games happening tomorrow, that we get some of that inventory taken. But the 49ers are going to have a long week. Either they play Saturday after a Saturday game or a Sunday after a Saturday game. That's going to depend on tomorrow. It's going to depend on if the Vikings or the Giants win. Sosa is Samson Ebukam. People are wondering who Sosa is. That's Samson Ebukam. All right. Well, that's been Late Night Lombardi. It's been fun, about a 30-minute show, and I got a lot more to do tomorrow. There's going to be Lombardi's Look Back. I got to watch the tape, and I'm going to try to come to you from some of the team bars in San Francisco. The New York Giants, the Vikings have a bar. That's probably the afternoon game. I'll probably hit that up. Should be a lot of fun during the afternoon. So everybody, thanks for joining. The 49ers stock has never been higher. My article, actually, they're running it at 2 a.m. today on The Athletic, 5 a.m. Eastern time. So that's coming out in less than 2 hours. It's on Charles Omenihu and Nick Bosa. So be sure to check that out. Sub to The Athletic. And we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks for joining the show. 49ers 41. Seattle Seahawks eliminated. They score only 23. We'll talk to you all soon. Thanks, guys.